Hi, I'm Richard Maraj, Senior Minister at Unity of Phoenix Spiritual Center, and I want to thank you for visiting our website and for tuning in to today's message. If you feel inspired by today's talk, I really encourage you to make a donation by hitting that button below and making a contribution to this ministry. It'll allow us to continue these messages online and to do the great work we do here at Unity of Phoenix, which is to inspire people to live better lives. So thanks for tuning in, thanks for your support, and we hope to see you at a Sunday real soon.
Morning again, everyone. All right, and a shout out to everybody who tunes in and watches us online. Welcome. So this guy's driving along the highway, and he sees this rabbit run in the middle of the road, and he tries his best to swerve, but he ends up hitting the rabbit. And so he's a very sensitive man, loves animals, and he goes outside to see what happened, and unfortunately, he ended up killing the rabbit. And so he just started bawling his eyes out on the side of the road. And, a beautiful woman starts driving along and sees him crying at the side of the road and gets out and asks him, "What's wrong?" And he says, "Well, I just feel horrible. I feel terrible. I accidentally hit this rabbit and now it's dead." And she said, "Oh, don't worry about it." She goes back to her car, gets a can and brings it over and just sprays it on the limp body of the rabbit. And suddenly the rabbit just pops up. And it hops 10 feet and it turns back and it waves at them. Hops 10 more feet, and it turns back and waves at him. 10 more feet, waves at him. 10 more feet, again and again, and waves. Keeps hopping and waving every 10 feet till totally out of sight. And the man is astounded. He's amazed. And he goes to the woman. He said, "What's in that can? What is it that you sprayed on that rabbit?" And the woman turns the can and shows him, and it reads, "Hairspray. Restores life to dead hair and adds permanent wave." And so, okay. All right. I had mercy applause the other 3 services, so this really makes me feel good. So, Easter. Easter is, by far, in my opinion, the most inspiring, uplifting, and miraculous of all the Christian holidays. Easter is a celebration of the resurrection of Jesus. It is a celebration of him rising from the dead, of him overcoming death, to give us hope and to give us the freedom to know that we are safe, that we can live life more abundantly, we can live it freely, live it more joyously. Easter is an amazing celebration. You throw in spring and the freshness and a couple of eggs and bunnies and chocolates, and this is about as good as it gets when it comes to holidays. The resurrection really is the ultimate overcoming, proving that there is nothing in this life, including death, that cannot be overcome. That there is nothing that can hold us back, that there is no betrayal, there is no shame, there is no injustice, there is nothing through God's Spirit that we cannot overcome. Sometimes we think the miraculous event of Easter happened only once, but the truth is that that was really just an example of a resurrecting power and a regenerating spirit that has always been. It is the very same power that resurrected Lazarus. It's the same power that resurrected the woman who'd been bleeding for 12 years from that into greater health. It is the thing that resurrected the situation with the loaves and fishes from lack to abundance. It is the same power that resurrected the lost prodigal son to bring him back home. And his father even said, "My son who was dead is now alive." It is the same power that converted Paul from being a hateful, angry, murderous man to someone who believed and preached and spread the word of God. Martin Luther once said that our Lord has written the promise of resurrection not in books alone, but in every leaf of springtime. And what he is saying is this resurrecting power is in all aspects of nature, including in you and in I and throughout our world. That this power to transform and reawaken and regenerate exists. That's why it says, "Christ in you, your hope of glory." That there is a spirit and a power in you that can transcend, that can rise above, that can be uplifted into a greater and more peaceful and joyous experience. There's new life. There is new possibilities available to each of us. You know, the truth is, as wonderful as Easter is, it is not just an event to commemorate, it is an event to emulate. Not just something to observe, but something to embody. Not just something to worship, but something to follow. You know, Easter is not a passport to an eternal life, an afterlife. It is a reminder of the power that we have to live this life, to live this time. You know. And so we need to ask ourselves the question, when you think about the resurrection, how does it affect how you're living your life today? How does it affect what you believe today? How does it affect your attitude today? How does it affect how you show up in your life, how you show up in your relationships? How does it affect how you feel, how you think, and what it is that you experience, the level of joy, the level of love, the level of fulfillment? You know, Norman Vincent Peale, who wrote the book The Power of Positive Thinking, said this. He said, when you lose your eagerness, when you lose your ability to feel, when you no longer dream dreams or see vision, when your life has become dull and lifeless, something in you has died, and it needs resurrection. So I ask you, where in your life do you feel dead or allowed something to become dormant or lifeless? Where in your life are you feeling stagnant or stuck? You know, where in your life have you felt crucified? Have you felt beat up or knocked down, mistreated, powerless, or even helpless? Where in your life do you need a resurrection? Where in your life do you want to feel better, to feel more alive, to feel more joy? Now today is Easter, the celebration of that Christ Spirit, of that resurrecting power. Today is also the final of our 6-week series on the book we've been using called the Book of Joy, written by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Bishop Desmond Tutu. And the book is about how do you find joy in the struggles of life? How do you find joy in the challenges and the hurts and difficulties that we all go through? Well, the truth is that joy is a part of our nature. You know, when babies are born, they're called bundles of joy. And that's in us. But sometimes as we grow, sometimes we lose our joy. Sometimes we feel I'm having no joy and feeling no joy or not enough joy in our lives. And what they both say is that it is a part of our nature, but we also have to cultivate a joyful mind. To cultivate someone is approaching me now. And okay. Can you hear me now? All right. Wow, that was almost like Superman stepping into a phone booth and being changed. Thanks, man. That was good. So I have no idea where I was, but that we can transform our joy, and we need to cultivate it. And we have that potential and power. Jesus in the book of John, chapter 14, verse 12 says, "Verily I say unto you, he who believes in me shall do the works that I have done, and even greater works than these." And is it just me, or is that inspiring? That if you believe in me, you shall do the works that I do, and even greater works than these. And what he's saying is, if you believe in the Spirit of God in you, the way I've believed in the Spirit of God in me, through that Spirit, you shall do these things and even greater. What he is saying is that Christ's potential, that resurrecting power, that spiritual power to overcome and transcend lives and dwells in each of us. And some people think, wow, that's blasphemous to say that you can do the things and even greater. But as Michael Beckwith says, the only blasphemy in this world is to limit the Spirit of God in you, to limit God's light and love and to not allow it to come through you. That is the only blasphemy. So my question is, in what way are you limiting the expression of God? In what way are you limiting God's love and light and joy and goodness? You know, because whatever it is that we think is holding us back or we are allowing to, the truth is we have the power to overcome and to rise that, to live more joyous lives. 2 Corinthians says, if anyone is in Christ, there is a new creation. Everything old has passed away. See, everything has become new. So the question is, how do we connect with that joy of Easter? How do we allow the Easter experience to resurrect those areas of our lives, to have us live more joyously and live more abundantly? And the first one is we've got to resurrect our level of compassion. I don't think we value in our culture compassion as much as we could or maybe should. Our culture doesn't promote it, even discourages compassion because we teach you got to look out for number one. That, it's a dog-eat-dog world. You got to get what you can get while you can get it. Compassion seems soft, it seems secondary, even tertiary to living a full and happy life. And yet Jesus taught that it was a primary focus of life. That it is an aspect of loving one another and loving others as ourselves. Remember when the woman, the adulterous woman, they wanted to stone her? And Jesus said, "He who is without sin, cast the first stone." And the intention was to have a level of compassion for others who make mistakes and realize that we do as well. You remember the story of the Good Samaritan, how the Good Samaritan was compassionate to the person that was beaten up at the side of the road. And the interesting thing about that story is the Samaritan was a mixed race person. They were thought of as less than. And in the story, if you remember, it was a priest and a high official that passed by the man and didn't show compassion. So it was a particularly powerful story of compassion that we all need to give compassion to one another. When Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," is an expression of compassion and an expression of the commandment to love others as we love ourselves. The Dalai Lama believes that compassion is the number one thing, the secret to a happy life. That when we think of ourselves too much, when we're overly focused on me, that it actually creates more pain and suffering. And he says, the incredible thing is that when you think about other people's suffering and try to alleviate for them, it reduces your own suffering. When you think about others and try to make them happy, it actually makes you happier. He said that is the secret to joy and happiness. It's to be kind. It is to be empathetic and compassionate towards others. And the reason we struggle with compassion is because we're focused so much on me. But the interesting thing about the me thing, it is when we do overly focus on us, it is because of our own fears and insecurities, our own feelings of unworthiness, our own beliefs and lack that I need to focus on only me, otherwise everything will go wrong. And that is not the truth. In fact, the over-focus on ourselves shows that we are disconnected from the truth of who we are. That we're disconnected from the truth that we are created in the image and likeness of God, that we are God's beloved children in whom God is well pleased, that we are whole, complete, and lacking in nothing, that we are the light of the world. Because when we're focused on the truth, we take care of ourselves, but we also have the freedom to be able to care for others because we're not scared. We know we're already loved. Because sometimes we fight in our lives to prove we're worthy. We try to struggle to earn people's love and respect and validation. Because there's a level that we don't believe that we're good enough. And the number one reason we're not good at compassion for others is because we don't give the most important person in our lives compassion, and that's ourselves. We are so driven to be number one and do our best that when we don't do well, we berate and put ourselves down. We tend to be the hardest on ourselves. Here's what the Dalai Lama says: a lack of self-compassion manifests itself in a harsh, critical, and judgmental relationship with ourselves. How many people have ever been harsh, critical, or judgmental on yourself? Okay. And so the reason we can't have as much compassion and limit joy is because we aren't as loving or gentle on ourselves. We aren't as encouraging or supportive or compassionate with who we are. We'll work ourselves to the bone. We'll skip meals. We won't sleep. We won't treat this body temple as the holy place that it is. They won't be accepting of ourselves when we make mistakes or don't meet up to a standard. We withdraw our own love from ourselves. And if we're not having compassion for ourselves and being accepting of ourselves, how can we be a channel for more joy or compassion for others? And so the question is, are you going to take time to be more loving to who you are and to know that you are the light of the world? You are God's beloved child in whom God is well pleased, that you're created in the image and likeness of the divine. And God is love means you're created in the image and likeness of love. And the question is, will you give that love to yourself and accept that love and rejoice in it? Because the more we're centered in our wholeness, guess what? the more we have to give and share in terms of being compassionate to others. The second thing we need to do is to resurrect our level of generosity to others. Sometimes when we think of that, be generous to others, we think, oh, it'll deplete all I have. If I'm generous with my money, I'll lose my money. If I'm generous with the time, I won't have enough time. If I'm generous with my love, I won't have enough love, or my energy, it'll all deplete me. And in fact, the very opposite is the truth. The more generous we are with others, actually the happier it makes us feel. The more generous we're others, the more joy and the more love that is experienced in all areas of our lives. You know, studies show that being generous to others actually makes us more happy. And they call it the helper's high. When you help people, there's endorphins that get triggered in a certain part of your brain that makes you feel happy, makes you feel really good. And so being generous to others is an important thing. You know, that same part of your brain that gets triggered when you help people to give you the helper's high is the same part of your brain that gets triggered when you eat chocolate. And so I just think that, honestly. And I'm not saying do one or the other. I think you should do both. But I think I finally figured out the connection between Easter and chocolate right there. And so another important thing is they say money can't buy happiness, but studies show that money actually can buy happiness if we spend it on others, if we are generous with others. They did this study where they gave $5 to two groups of people. One was instructed, buy yourself something with the $5. The other group was buy something for someone else, particularly someone you don't know or someone who is in need of help. And you know, afterwards, they re-interviewed them, and the people who bought for themselves were not any happier than they were before. But every single person who bought something for someone else registered a higher level of feeling better or feeling more joy or feeling happier in their life. And it didn't matter whether it was a cup of coffee, whether it was a card, or whether it was a toy, or whether it was flowers or a pack of gum or a bag of popcorn. It did not matter. But the act of generosity, the act of compassion and caring and giving to someone to help them be happier absolutely makes a difference in our level of joy. It does. Every single religion, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, all call it a different name, charity or whatever it's called, but it's about being generous and giving to others. It's more than a virtue, it's a spiritual law and practice that as we do unto others, it will come back to us. As we are generous with others, we become more generous with ourselves. As we make others happy, it makes us happy. It just works that way. And it's contagious, this generous thing. You see someone be generous, it makes you want to be generous. I was at the Village Inn having breakfast, and a guy ahead of me said, hey, I want to pay that man's breakfast. It was his minister. I thought that was very nice. But I saw him, and he said I wanted to do it anonymously. And I got to tell you, it got me all excited to want to do something kind for someone anonymously. They say when you are consistently generous with others, it has a 3-degree of separation ripple effect to others. That when you're consistently generous, that your friends are more likely to be generous, your friends' friends are more likely to be generous, and your friends' friends' friends are also more likely to be generous. Why? Because there's a ripple effect of good that we spread throughout the world by us being caring and thoughtful and helping one another. And whether it's even opening a door or a smile or letting someone in heavy traffic, all those acts absolutely make a positive difference in the world. Whether it's home, whether in your relationship or at work, and with your neighbors, anywhere to be generous to others absolutely makes a difference. Anthony Ray Hilton, I told you about him last week, who was imprisoned for 30 years for a crime he didn't commit. When he entered the prison, he was so filled with anger. You know, he said he kept saying, I'm innocent. He kept saying, I didn't do it. And he realized that his voice meant nothing. So he was so filled with anger, he refused to speak. He wouldn't say good morning. He wouldn't say good night. He wouldn't say a thing to anyone. If the guards needed info, he would write it down and give them a piece of paper. He was so angry. And then 4 years into his confinement, and he was on death row, he heard a man crying and just bawling his eyes out like a baby. And for some reason, the man ended up, it was his mom that he lost. And it triggered his memory that of the compassion and love that his mom had for him. And it touched him in a deep and profound way. And she ended up reaching out to the man and consoling him and helping him And he even said, hey, look, now your mom's in heaven, and she's up there looking out for you and advocating with God for you. And he told him a joke, and they laughed, and he said in that moment, it was not just the first time he spoke in 4 years, but it was the first time he hadn't felt anger in 4 years. It was the first time he felt peace in 4 years, and the first time he felt any level of love or level of joy in 4 years. And the thing that I find amazing, and so every day for the next 26 years, he made his number one goal to help bring joy to other people. He was literally to help others, to encourage them. He became generous with his heart, generous of spirit, generous of his time and his energy and his support and his advice to those people. And the amazing thing he said was he found love in a place that was loveless, and he found joy in a place that was joyless. So my question for you is, where in your life are you willing to resurrect that spirit of being generous, of being giving, of being helpful and supportive and encouraging? And again, it doesn't matter if it's a cup of coffee. It doesn't matter if it's opening a door for someone. Are you committed to allowing that spirit in you to be opened up to greater joy by sharing and being generous to others? Final thing I just want to talk about is to resurrect your level of purpose. Sometimes we think our lives have no purpose, or we haven't found it yet. Sometimes we think our lives have no meaning or value, or that we don't make a difference, and that is absolutely not the truth. You know, the people who are happiest in the world are people who believe that they have a sense of purpose, who know that their purpose, or believe that there is a purpose to their lives, that their lives have meaning, that their lives have value. Because when we know our purpose or believe that our lives have a purpose, it gives us clarity, it gives us passion, it gives us drive and motivation, and it helps us persevere when life isn't going well, to know that even through this stuff, my life still has meaning and I still have a direction for it. Jesus didn't have an easy time. You know, he felt like this was hard. Father, if you can, take this cup from me. But he also said, should I ask you to save me? And he said, no, for this hour I have come. So he knew he came for a purpose, because it helps us get through those difficult times as well as do the great things that we do. The Dalai Lama in exile knows his life has purpose. Desmond Tutu knows his life has purpose. All of our lives absolutely has purpose. So when Jesus said we are here, that we can do the works that he did and even greater, it means that you're here to do some great work. And the question is, what is it that you're here to do? Is it to heal? Is it to support? Is it to inspire? Is it to teach? Is it to nurture? Is it to encourage? Whatever it is, do that thing and do it joyously. My sister yesterday sent me a little text thing, and it said, Jesus is coming, look busy. And and I don't know about you, but I've been busy and done nothing. And the truth is, the work about doing with purpose is about what are you doing with intention. And when you do something with intention and love and a joyful attitude, whatever it is, it absolutely has an impact. It absolutely makes a difference. Some of us may know clearly what our purpose is, and that's great. We need to keep doing it. And even if we don't, we need to wake up every day and say to ourselves, my life has purpose. My life has meaning. My life makes a difference. Because when you start your day with that intention, even if you don't know what it is, I guarantee you, it will put an impact on everything that you do. My life has purpose. My life has meaning. My life makes a difference. Let's say that together. My life has purpose. My life has meaning. My life makes a difference. Just take a deep breath into that and connect with that truth, because that is the very truth of who you are and why you're here and why we're all here for one another. You know, the amazing thing about Easter for me is that in the tomb, Jesus was in the tomb dead for 3 days. And it was dark, and it was still, and it was silent, and it was totally quiet. And yet, something great happened in that tomb. That spirit and that energy, something amazing happened in there. Something miraculous, something transforming, something life-changing, something life-renewing, something that got the attention of the world happened in there. The change and transformed the dead to living, and the stone was rolled away, and it came forth new life. It came forth, something miraculous. And my question is, do you believe that that power that was in that tomb that created something we can't see and don't know exists in you? And will you go to that quiet, secret place and allow that resurrecting power to transform you in greater and more amazing and wonderful ways? Easter is an amazing time to rejoice and celebrate the resurrection of Jesus, but it is also a great reminder of that power that lives in us, and to use it to resurrect our self-compassion and how loving and kind we are to ourselves, to resurrect how generous we are to others, and to do things to bring others happiness and to reduce their pain. And finally, to resurrect our sense of purpose about our lives, because when we do, we will discover the joy of Easter and the joy of living. God bless you all.